Shut your cake hole, you overeducated whore. The misogynistic weaponization of the PhD. This article was written for Fast Capitalism by Tara Brabazon. Femininity is a marginal and marginalised identity in online environments. As the internet commercialised, women became visible as customers for the digital shopping centre. Women were unwelcome online visitors who had a right to shop, but not to speak or comment. With the growth of social media through the first quarter of the 21st century, other changes accompanied this rise. Women gained from the widening participation agenda that swept through national university systems through the 1980s and the 1990s, often accompanied by an introduction or increase in fees to subsidise these degrees. By 2017, for the first time in the United States, there were more women enrolled in doctoral programs than men. In 2022, and for the first time, the majority of PhD enrolments in Aotearoa, New Zealand, were women. This trend has been repeated in many nations, with Australian doctoral programs also dominated by women, sometimes composing 2/3 of enrolments in some institutions. Doctoral education matters. I've fulfilled the role of a Dean of Graduate Studies and a Dean of Graduate Research for much of the last decade. Concurrently, I've delivered weekly videos for higher degree students and academic colleagues. Recording these vlogs has accompanied me on trips around the world, followed my transfer between jobs, and even the death of my husband, Professor Steve Redhead. Many of these sessions have emerged via requests from higher degree students. The topics vary from the instrumental, how do I write a conclusion, to the practical, what do examiners look for in a thesis, and the ontological, what is theory. I've been lucky. The feedback has been generous and gentle, and these weekly sessions have accompanied scholars on commutes, dropping their children at school, or as the soundtrack for a treadmill walk. My ageing process has been catalogued, and life's disappointments and traumas have been shared, including a pandemic, deaths of students, and grief, alongside the neoliberal vagaries of higher education. Aggressive, confronting and trolling comments have been rare. In 2024, for the first time, a troll offered comments on the videos that were written and disseminated for doctoral students. Because I filter all comments so that I can guarantee a safe space for a diverse group of students, they were caught and seen before they could upset doctoral candidates. Here are some of the more unusual comments. Look at this muppet. Look at these muppets. Look at this little dog. OMG, there it is again. The language was so banal that YouTube's language policies would not automatically discard the message as spam and or offensive. Muppets, dogs, and it are denotatively neutral terms in most contexts. However, as these comments continued to be offered and deleted, their weirdness and directness increased. I investigated the profile of the poster, not using a real name and not posting any videos or even listing and curating the videos of others. Heartfelt Henry joined YouTube in 2022. They created no content. They offered no shareable material or community-building videos. The person was, and is, a meat puppet, constructed to offer anonymous reviews without consequences. As these messages continued, I reported him, and then the meat puppet disappeared back into their freezer. One of the more provocative, heartfelt Henry comments before returning to the deep freeze was, quote, "Shut your cake hole, you over-educated whore," end of quote. As an offensive statement, it has a brilliance to it. It captures the objectification of women's body parts, cake hole, the necessity for women to remain silent, shut your cake hole, and the sexualisation of women in public, whore. Of most interest is the word over-educated. How is the over in education determined? As a mitigation to a noun that is important and valued, education, the notion of being over-educated demands attention. It is relational. For one human to be over-educated, another must be under-educated. This word activates perception rather than fact. To label another person over-educated is to log underconfidence, brittleness, fear and worry. As confirmed by Jackie et al., language matters to men and misogynistic communities, with automatic detection software catching up to their vocabulary, language patterns and attacks. Language is important to this paper. The imperative of my article is to explore why the language of higher education is used by Andrew Tate, the Incel, alt-right, manosphere and Trump-fuelled movements, while, concurrently, attacking universities, degrees and the women who work hard and graduate with qualifications. The interventions on my 2024 YouTube channel remain an entree into the focus of this paper: how the doctorate is being weaponised and used as a tool of ridicule by misogynists. I first recognised the attacks on women holding doctorates with the treatment of Dr. Jill Biden, an academic and wife of the President of the United States. The mocking of her qualifications, research and career was odd, peculiar, nasty. These attacks emerged from men who neither matched nor held equivalent intellectual verifications. Therefore, the first section of this paper provides a first lens on the myopathy of misogyny. Dr. Biden, or Kiddo. A prequel is required to scaffold my argument. When Biden was elected to the presidency of the United States, replacing Donald Trump, his wife's education inflamed social media. Dr. Biden's Doctor of Education set off an array of misogynistic attacks. These were not simply attacks on a woman, but on a qualification dominated by women. The doctorate is a standard and level of degree. It is a volume of work. It is relationally defined as being above a master's and a bachelor degree. It is assessed by external examiners and must confirm a SOC, a significant, original contribution to knowledge. A medical doctor holds an MBBS within the British tradition, acknowledging the achievement of a Bachelor of Medicine and a Bachelor of Surgery. A medical doctor does not hold a master's or a doctorate. Qualifications are ordered in levels that are, for example, presented in the AQF, the Australian Quality Framework. In a scaffolding from 1 to 10, qualifications are placed in tiers. Each number is accorded a particular graduate attribute and a volume of learning. A bachelor's degree is an AQF 7. With honours, it's an AQF 8. A master's degree is an AQF 9. A doctorate is an AQF 10. Within this volume and standard of work, there are many types of doctorates. Doctorates are a genre of writing. The traditional thesis spans between 70,000 and 100,000 words. The artefact and exegetical thesis presents a series of research artefacts, so creative writing, sonic, visual or design-based, and a 40,000-word exegesis, explaining the original research configuration through the artefacts. A PhD by prior publication clusters an array of career publications on a particular area completed before the enrolment. These are then aligned to confirm a SOC in an integrating essay or contextual statement spanning from 20,000 to 40,000 words. Then there is the professional doctoral suite. These include the Doctor of Education, the Doctor of Creative Arts, the Doctor of Public Health, and the Doctor of Business Administration, to offer a few of the best-known nomenclatures. Varying between nations, most commonly 1/3 of the degree is coursework and 2/3 is independent research within a professional doctorate. The dissertations are often shorter. They're shorter than the traditional doctorate because of the coursework component. Dr. Jill Biden holds a Doctor of Education, a professional doctorate. Upon her husband's election, she was attacked as an academic. The mocking of her qualifications, her research, and her career was disturbing. At the time of Joe Biden's presidential victory, I tweeted the importance of this moment, that Dr. Biden was a career academic and doctorally qualified. The responses were immediate, intense and weird, but these comments were productive in their oddity and provided an indication of the fear, the loathing and the anger created through the education of women. The goal was to undermine, discredit and create false equivalences. For example, Joseph Epstein, in the pages of the Wall Street Journal, combined an attack on Dr. Biden, feminism and doctorates, describing her as kiddo. He attacked the use of the doctor for humanities and social science academics, and particularly ridiculed the discipline of education. He mocked her thesis topic, titled Student Retention at the Community College, Meeting Student Needs. This is an important area of research as community colleges reveal a high attrition rate. However, the Doctorate of Education, while demonstrating the volume of learning required by regulatory mandates such as the AQF-10, differs from the Doctor of Philosophy, the PhD. Differences can exist within the genre of doctorate while maintaining standards. Natalie Wexler showed why Biden's use of the doctor captured a critique of the discipline in which it was achieved, education. There is a particular focus, a fixation on the scientific method. Most disciplines do not use it. Rigour and transparency are proven and configured differently. Credibility is carried by the scientific method. The experimental sciences, particularly physics, are the only disciplines still dominated by men. This ridiculing of Dr. Biden did not only emerge through the election of her husband. The weaponization of the doctorate and research expertise, particularly when held by a woman, was only intensified through the pandemic. Through the 2020s, the proportion of women in doctoral programs increased, now forming a majority of students in most national systems. Men are the minority. Now, this inversion has startling consequences. The tipping point is coming where the most educated people in many nations will show a feminine face. This radical reshaping of the ideologies of success, merit, and achievement is transformative in how education, qualifications, knowledge, and learning are valued. This moment of historical pivot is crucial to the history of doctoral education and also to men, women, and those occupying different gender affirmations. Through such a transformation of credentialing and qualifications, it is necessary to undermine a woman's education, which was clearly revealed in responses to tweets about Biden's doctorate. Dr. Jill Biden is an educated woman and an educator, as shown in social media appearances about love and relationships. She is reflexive, intelligent, and considerate in her views. It is possible and common to be in a long-term relationship, a parent, an active member of a community, and a doctorally qualified academic. The woman scholar occupies an agitated and unsettled space both inside and outside the university. They complete the housework of the university, servicing men who focus on the actions and behaviours to enable their profile, their success, and their promotion. Therefore, what is happening? Why are educated women a problem? And for whom? One answer is that women with an education have choices, including the ability to live outside of heteronormative relationships. Currently, a diversity of women, roles and possibilities are available through popular culture to help scholars and citizens visualise these alternatives. The remarkable and intense response to the Barbie movie and the success of and backlash towards Taylor Swift are two examples. The often cited line from the Barbie screenplay, "She's everything, he's just Ken," confirms the different popular cultural narratives emerging for young men and women and the diverse approaches to gender and sexuality. Hinsliff realised the consequences of such movements, quote, "As young women become dramatically more liberal, young men are getting more conservative," end of quote. Also confirming this difference, The Economist probed, quote, "why young men and women are drifting apart," end of quote. There is a reason for this separation. My research now moves to explore the ideologies of men and masculinity while recognising the powerful historical legacy of men's studies. Certainly when feminists have explored the topic of men, such as Barbara Arnwright's The Hearts of Men, American Dreams and the Flight from Commitment, the results are ambivalent, they're intriguing. Arnwright, from the tail end of the second wave of feminism, explored why women marry men and why men marry women. She recognised, quote, "the inequality of motivation," end of quote, with homophobia being used as a stick to coax men into marriage and validate few alternative positions or roles beyond the breadwinner. From this contextualisation of marriage for men, political, economic and social contexts have transformed with specific attention to the education of women. The anti-woman ideology is a gateway drug for the alt-right. What begins with misogyny moves into white supremacy. From this foundational complexity encircling a First Lady and her education, this article moves to the manosphere. Black pill ideology. The manosphere is a reified but productive word that captures a return to traditional values that never existed. Attended by phrases such as toxic masculinity and casino capitalism to cite Mano, the manosphere is punctuated by attacks on homosexuality to shape a constricted rendering of heteronormativity. Women are reduced to bodies, and indeed orifices, for a penis to enter. The best known part of the manosphere is the Incel movement, which has gained recent and popular attention mainly because of the violent words, imagery and action of its members. There is an outlier origin to the word, being formed in 1997 as Alana's Involuntary Celibacy Project. This was a community of all genders and sexual orientations, composed of those who were lonely and not in a relationship. From this benevolent origin, a post-subculture appropriated the word and reconfigured it for the read-write web in the 2010s, activating the commentaries, life and death of Elliot Rodger. The Incel subreddit became the focus of digitised secondary socialisation, where men blamed women for their lack of sexual relationships. This subreddit was banned in November 2017. This post-subculture is composed of mainly heterosexual white men. The trope that organises the incel community is the failure of these men to form or build a romantic, or more specifically, sexual relationship with women. This is what Michael Halpin described as, quote, weaponized subordination, end of quote. The causes of this failure and subordination are placed onto women, resulting in misogyny, sexualised entitlement, sexualised violence, the celebration of rape, objectification and online abuse. Research from Greneau et al. Has shown that unwanted celibacy correlates with misogyny. The incel movement has come under scrutiny from educational institutions, law enforcement and governments, as this online post-subculture has framed and enabled the mass murders of women. Angry men, aggrieved men, blame women for their sexual failures. A wider context exists that validates and codifies this extremism through the alt-right, the manosphere, men's rights groups, fathers' rights groups, men going their own way, MGTOW, and pickup artists, PUA. The unifying trope of these diverse misogynistic ideologies is that women are objectified for their sexual use and possess few rights. At its most extreme is Nathan Larson's website, which not only justified raping women, but offered strategies to rape. There is also a validation of pedophilia and sexual intercourse with minors. Young women without experience and consciousness of alternative ways of life, ways of living and decision-making are the target of this predatory behaviour and advice. My article is not about the incel. Instead, I explore why such communities and ideologies are justified through the lexicon of education, research and intelligence, while also denying formal learning infrastructures and the education, research and intelligence of women. The manosphere mobilises the words of scholars such as Jordan Peterson and Brian Gilmartin. Reified biological determinism and evolutionary psychology are offered as evidence to justify injustices. Such irrationality is hooked through the narratives of popular culture because real humans and real contexts do not fulfil the ideological brief. The red pill and the blue pill from the Matrix series have been enlarged to include the black pill. Science fiction tropes, rather than peer-reviewed research, have been deployed to validate present injustices. The black pill is an ideology held by the incel that incorporates biological determinism, fatalism and defeatism for those who are configured as unattractive. It is founded on misogyny and displacement, denying women's liberation and movements for equality and reifying women to the attractiveness of their faces and the availability of their genitals. Within this flawed discourse, women will select the most physically attractive men, and the black pill ideology confirms that there is a group of men that will never be successful with women. Success is defined as having sex with women. From this perspective, women are cruel, shallow, and gold diggers. The nomenclature for women amongst the incels is clear. Femoids, female humanoids or foids, and roasties, which connotes that the labia minora of women looks like roast beef after continual sexual use. Attractive women are Stacys, less attractive women are Beckys, sexually attractive men are Chads. Those men that are neither chads nor incels are normies. This taxonomy of identity summons hopelessness and leads to destructive behaviours such as suicide and violence towards others. Studies have shown that incels are predominantly white men in their late teens and their early 20s. There is violence in their words and occasionally their actions. George Soldini, in August 2009, shot and killed women at the LA Fitness Club in Pittsburgh. Elliot Rodger killed 6 people and injured 14 in Isla Vista in 2014. Both these men are hailed as role models in the incel community. These brutal killings were continued through Chris Harper Mercer in 2015, Sheldon Bentley in 2016, William Atchison in 2017, and Nicholas Cruz and Alec Manassas in 2018. All these men left online notes, diaries and posts, increasingly described as an incel rebellion, or better, uprising. As shown through the Kennedy Kolarz monograph, these murders have continued through the 2020s, with online treaties justifying the rape and the killing of women. The phrase alpha male entered popular culture through online and offline writing in and about the manosphere, and incels in particular. Alphas are sexually successful, with women wealthy, physically healthy, tall and strong. Neoliberalism matters to the construction and mobility of this ideology. How are men to understand and justify why they are not attractive to women? One strategy is to overfill the alphas with hyper-neoliberal characteristics: wealth, competitiveness, excessive consumption, affluence, and ruthlessness. This is their black pill science, a way to justify a lack of sexual partners and shift the blame over to women. The literature exploring the incels and the manosphere is strong, built on 50 years of men's studies and masculinity studies. Lisa Sulgara's The Incel Rebellion, The Rise of the Manosphere and the Virtual War Against Women, enacted an online ethnographic study of what she described as a subculture, noting the long literature and the theorisation and critiques of subculture and deviance, alternative terms and divergent configurations of ontology, methodology and epistemology are possible. However, she provides a thick and a rich description that is characteristic of the most effective ethnographic research. She summoned the chads and other alphas and probed the function of women in incel culture, being described as a, quote, whole, end of quote. That is, an object for men to use. Men have sex, women submit and make their wholes available. Sulgara aligned the incel movement with a, quote, larger backlash against feminism, end of quote, justified through black pill ideology and entrenched nihilism and alt-right fueled libertarianism. Hypergamy is valued through pseudoscience. Through these agitating ideologies, there is one unifying maxim. The incel is populated by men that do not have sex with women. They are lonely and cluster into a community of shared grievance. As shown by Sykes and Matz's technique of neutralisation, once a marginalised community is formed, these extreme views become more extreme. There is a break, a rupture or disconnection from consensus values and ideology. This breakage or snapping of connectivity starts to explain how and why the language of higher education is used in these communities. Sulgara, in her ethnography of incels, added detail to the understanding of this paradox. Quote, incels overwhelmingly appear to be educated, often at a degree level. This is information often volunteered on forums and through my direct interactions with them. It shows that they are keen to demonstrate intellectual ability, something which is undeniably positive and a major achievement, in opposition to the failure they otherwise present themselves as. But for incels, being smart cannot detract from being unattractive. Looks will always trump intelligence. End of quote. It would have been beneficial for Sugata to present more granular interpretations about the appearance of being educated and the nature of the degrees held by her respondents. Clearly, it is important for these men to affirm their intelligence. This is relevant in contrast, particularly when noting the frequency with which such men as Andrew Tate describe women as, quote, stupid, end of quote, or possessing a, quote, low IQ, end of quote. Female empowerment is a problem, as it blocks men from gaining access to women's bodies. The formal education of women subverts the logic of knowledge, degrees, and universities as being valuable, useful, and important. The paradox is clear. The education of men is necessary to perform, share, and value. The education of women must be undermined, belittled, and marginalised. Misogyny is an easy word to use, but the hatred of women, the repulsion, requires more precise analysis. The repetitive use of words such as whore and slut is significant. It is the privilege of men to label women and have the resultant offences minimised through phrases and clichés like boys will be boys or sowing wild oats. Yet the consequences of this minimisation, disrespect and disgust of the feminine is that girls grow up frightened of men. This fear of men and their brutalising violence is both deployed and mobilised in the manosphere. Feminism is blamed for men's suffering because it interferes in and critiques men's behaviour, language and actions. As Laura Bates confirms, quote, at its simplest, the argument goes like this. If women's sexual autonomy has given them wicked and tyrannical control over men's lives, then women's liberation is the root of all male suffering. End of quote. For the incel, young virginal women, or, quote, jailbait, end of quote, are the focus of their attention because experienced women are dangerous. They are literate in men's incompetencies, their weaknesses and fears. Domestic violence is merely one example of everyday sexism to maintain control of women, as is internet trolling and patrolling the behaviours and expectations of women. These behaviours span from the incels through to Jordan Peterson, who commenced his public intellectual career critiquing trans citizens and their pronouns, but moved very quickly to management and framing of acceptable femininity. To describe the incels as a subculture, as Sugata has deployed in her ethnography, is minimising their relationship with wider political organisations such as the alt-right. This is not a small subculture. It bleeds through digitised platforms such as Twitter, X, TikTok and YouTube. Wider tropes entwine heteronormativity, patriarchy, misogyny, race and racism. This is populism. It fed and feeds Donald Trump and Donald Trump voters. For example, on October 2nd, 2018, Trump stated about the Me Too movement that, quote, it's a very scary time for young men in America, where you can be guilty of something you may not be guilty of. Women are doing great. End of quote. The polarity of women's success at the cost of men's autonomy is also fed by evangelical Christianity, as seen through X-profiles such as @BeHerLeader, which shows why men should rule and discipline their wives. Such vocabulary and behaviour are not limited to one man or a subculture. This is an andragogical movement teaching men how to behave. From this framework emerges a series of guides, odd interventions from men to build a successful woman. One from Brian Bruce is titled, memorably, How to Become a High-Quality Woman. The outcome of being a high-quality woman is that, quote, men of worth marry virtue, end of quote. Such books commence with the struggles of contemporary masculinity, confused by the rules of interpersonal relationships or how to treat women. What is a man's purpose in such a system? Well, Bruce offers some answers. Quote, he would be seeking a friend as well as a mother for his future children. He knows that he's not adequate and fully grown, and he expects that she will make him want to grow and be a better man. He expects a caring and loving girl who's a bit like his own mother. In order to make your man want you, you have to be gorgeous because, of course, a gorgeous woman always steals the hearts of men and keeps them under her magic. Men want you to be faithful in a relationship, even though evolution has made fidelity much more difficult for your man than for you. End of quote. The challenge for this particular version of heteronormativity is that if women do not play the role of the faithful, attractive carer, then the resultant bereft masculinity looks somewhat strange and strained. The archetype of this strange and strained masculinity is found in Leo Black's book, Semen Retention Revolution. While the title is appropriately strained, the subtitle is stunning in its confidence and detail. Quote, unlock alpha male confidence, attract women, status and success, and overcome porn and masturbation addiction with sexual transmutation mastery. End of quote. Part Monty Python, part January 6 shaman. The book summons, quote, ancient teachings on masculinity, end of quote, to critique the way in which men, quote, are almost constantly accosted by opportunities to make us softer, more vulnerable, and less able to fight back against our urges and whims, end of quote. The last phrase is particularly intricate. Urges and whims must be fought, but acknowledging vulnerability and soft masculinity reduces the capacity to develop personal control. Such layered contradictions manifest through the imperative, quote, to abstain from ejaculation, end of quote, and create, quote, a stronger you, end of quote. For Black, there is, quote, a war on masculinity, end of quote. The shaping of this argument is resonant, if repetitive, reinforcing the strength of the binarised poles in terms of roles and positions, creates a closed semiotic system that ignores history, context and change. Women exist to be of service to men. Quote, the rising standards of beautiful feminine women should serve as even more of an incentive to improve and give yourself the best chance of attracting the best gal or gals for you. End of quote. This goal of attracting gals, noting the plural, is founded on men focusing on semen retention. Arbitrary pseudoscience is used to manage social changes that challenge asymmetrical patriarchal relationships. Noting the diversity of voices, views and ideologies in the manosphere, only unified through disrespect, marginalisation and the disgust of the feminine, it is important to render these toxic masculinities plural. They must be discussed, they have a history, it is important to understand them rather than recoil or marginalise their importance. The attention must be placed on how the most famous of these manfluencers defines and mobilises masculine ideologies, while also deploying higher education as a lexicon to make money, empower men, and degrade women. Andrew Tate and authentic inauthenticity. The minstrel for this misogynistic tune is Andrew Tate. The oddity of masculinity in late capitalism is that a kickboxer became the muse, sage and prisoner, in the many meanings of that noun, of our time. Yet what is significant is that he has appropriated the language of higher education, degrees and a university to sell his products. He has rendered himself a libertarian and a liberator. Quote, "I offer no sugar-coated platitudes or soft comforts. Instead, I serve you the raw, unfiltered truths that society often overlooks." End of quote. He writes books including Warrior Mindset, Top G's Inspirational Quotes for Living Authentically. This is a 73-page book with a single quote on each page. The statements on these pages include: "Success is always stressful. Do the impossible and never doubt yourself again. The internet is the new battleground of Earth, the Wild West, the place of truth and opportunity. The harder you work, the more important you become. Money will fix all your problems. And you're viewing yourself as a short man. Walk up and be the man." End of quote. Part Tony Robbins and part Iron John, these statements show that inspiration, determination and confidence creates a shimmer of success, but the brittleness of the achievement is clear. This is a world where 73 pages, each with a single line featured, is a book. This is a world where a 2-hour video is a PhD program. Andrew Tate was born in the United States in 1986 and deploys an array of acronyms including Top G and King Cobra. A professional kickboxer, he entered British Big Brother and significantly was removed through publicity for sexist and homophobic tweets, alongside footage of him hitting a woman with a belt. While in the Big Brother house, he was also the subject of a sexual assault investigation. This Big Brother exposure and notoriety enabled entrepreneurship through operating with his actual brother, Tristan, a webcam business. Young women were lured through personal and sexual relationships to work for the Tate brothers. This process was revealed in a BBC documentary to socialise women into sex work and perpetuate violence against women. The Tate brothers have a second cluster of businesses involving online courses. These titles and platforms include the PhD, Pimping Hose degree, and Hustler University, which transformed into the real world and, for higher fees, access to the war room. His training courses focus on two areas: gaining wealth and men's relationship with women. He owns the domain name www.university.com. Sexual intercourse is Andrew Tate's foundation, frame and punctuation. He is a man for the simulacrum. He lives in re-representations, offering a cartoon-like aggression fueled by rapid-fire threats. Andrew Tate is authentic in his inauthenticity. He encourages men to, quote, make money, end of quote, and, quote, leave the matrix, end of quote. In one of his short promotional videos, Tate stitched to the video a disappointed and unnamed woman who'd supposedly achieved 2 degrees and was being offered entry-level employment options. She expressed personal disappointment that her degree did not enable more senior roles. There are challenges with authenticating this video and the qualifications of the featured woman speaker. However, Tate attached her disclosure to his wide-ranging attack on degrees and universities. Education, supposedly, does not matter. Making money matters. While this straw woman was used to demonstrate through a single data point that university degrees create disappointment, he has been overt and clear in other videos that, quote, women are fucking stupid, end of quote. Such offensive statements are not unusual. His preference for young women is so that he can, quote, make an imprint on them, end of quote. If a woman accuses him of having sex with multiple partners, he stated in his response that he would be banging out the machete, boom in her face, and grip her by the neck. Shut up, bitch. End of quote. He confirmed that women who are raped, quote, bear some responsibility, end of quote, for it. And when asked if he was a rapist, he responded with, quote, I like the idea of just being able to do what I want. I like being free. End of quote. The cartoon violence may seem troubling or even humorous, but the problem is that this violent masculinity has become a business model. These are not comedic slogans. They are dog whistles to make money from desperate and angry men who subscribe to his platform. The legal difficulties in which the Tate brothers have been entangled occurred through the, quote, lover boy method, end of quote, which describes the ensnaring of women to feel love for their exploiter, and then they're used to make money. In the case of the Tates, the allegations encircled the use of the lover boy method to lure women to perform in their webcam business. This method extended to alleged human trafficking. The challenge confronting the Tates in their defence of these charges is that they have developed a course teaching men how to convince women to sleep with them so that they can be exploited. Their courses have proven the case for the prosecution. Indeed, the lover boy method became the basis of the PhD course, Pimpin' Hose Degree, PhD. This particular PhD course has some foundational principles. Quote, women are impressed by men with money. Women are biologically programmed to seek an alpha male. Men must be opportunistic with women to be successful. End of quote. While this course was part of the deplatforming of Tate from Instagram, Facebook and YouTube, the 120-minute video is available from multiple sources for downloading. The diversity of sources, platforms and locations of this content and the extreme responses to this material can be investigated by researchers alongside the hundreds of thousands of views and comments. The simulacrum masculinity colonises the real, the true and the diverse. The repetition of simple and brutalising mantras creates certainty from confused misogynistic ramblings. With reality colonised, education is similarly gated. Andrew Tate ran Hustlers University. After the deplatforming, this migrated to a subscription service where people paid US $49.99 a month to receive information about how to make money. The goal was not professional development and improvement, but leveraging cryptocurrency and selling the services of webcam models. It was also a pyramid scheme, as revealed by Paul Harrington, by deploying the more elegant nomenclature of affiliate marketing. The outcome was the same. Members received money for recruiting other members. In 2022, Hustler University reached new popularity as Tate asked his members to disseminate his videos through social media. Through this dissemination, increasing concerns about the content emerged. A series of his accounts were suspended and banned on Twitter. Through the Musk configuration and rendering of X, Tate returned in November 2022. After this deplatforming, Hustlers University changed its name to the appropriately Baudrillian title The Real World Portal, with the subtitle of Andrew Tate University in October 2022, and still maintains a subscription model. Andrew Tate also constructed another service titled The War Room. It is here that the PhD course was housed, instructing men how to isolate and manipulate women to naturalise sex work via webcams. The dehumanisation of women has had an impact and a consequence. This is popular culture, but it's also the populist dehumanisation of women. The next section of this article probes why the vocabulary of higher education is used to marginalise, ridicule and demean women at the very point that women are dominating many disciplines in our universities. Andrew Tate's PhD, Pimpin' Hose degree, or why is Andrew Tate so focused on simulacrum higher education? At this moment in history, when women are enrolling in greater numbers of higher degrees than men, the response of libertarian masculine influencers is quite intriguing. Instead of working hard, testing themselves and enrolling in a Doctor of Philosophy, a manfluencer writes his own version of a higher degree. The Pimpin' Hose degree, PhD, results from 2.5 hours of watching an Andrew Tate video. In this video, he smokes, orders a woman to complete menial tasks, and offers repetitive commentary about the laziness, stupidity, and foolishness of women. Moving from subscription services, he also publishes books, or more accurately books in inverted commas, including Hustlers University. The title is significant and once more confirms a fixation on higher education. While dismissive of formal education as part of the matrix, he relies on the tropes and vocabulary from universities. So from this foundation, his project is clear, quote, "Welcome to Hustlers University, where you'll study all I know about creating money in business from the ground up. Traditional schooling, in my opinion, is a waste of time and a swindle. Universities do not teach valuable money-making skills, and conventional education brainwashes individuals into being worker drones. As an alternative to traditional education, I recommend learning from me and joining my war room." End of quote. There are multiple ideological slippages happening in this passage and in the book more generally. Firstly, a discrediting of university emerges because academics are not teaching money-making skills. Significantly, and absent from this ideology, is the verifiable outcome that those with a degree earn more money than those who do not. For Tate, paid employment is critiqued, summoning worker drones. Finally, building on the discrediting of university qualifications, he commercialises his own supposed educational business, the war room. The only valuable lesson to learn here is, quote, making money, end of quote. Indeed, quote, money comes first, end of quote. The fastest path to making money is to, quote, get things online, end of quote. The next issue for Tate to address is the methodology for making money. His solution is predictable and clear, quote, "If you want to start a business my way, make a website, put some pictures on it, say you have a lot of stuff you don't have, and start making money," end of quote. In other words, the way to make money is to commit fraud. The question is how credibility is carried through such a scheme. It is clearly ridiculous, irrational, and illegal. However, credibility does not emerge through qualifications, verification, or expertise. Instead, quote, there is a level of respect humans have for other humans who are a physical specimen. End of quote. Deploying his data set of one, he confirms, quote, if you command a physical presence, your words have more weight and it helps in business across all things. End of quote. Using the ambiguous noun things is the only available strategy to transform a very strange opinion into the mantra of a manfluencer. The inversion is startling. It is Orwellian. This cascading of assumptions, falsehoods and lies results in the exploitation of women. Quote, everything I know, webcam girls, is a very unusual business and none of you have probably run webcam girls, but I learned a whole bunch about business running my webcam girls. In fact, I approached my webcam girl business the same way I approached every other business with the same tenets. I started it for cheap with a laptop I already had and a girlfriend I already had. I found out how to get the money in before I found out how to produce the videos. I had people sending me money for these feature-length porn videos. I couldn't even produce them. I didn't have a camera. Money first. But the reason I could have so many girls listen to me is because I am me. And I'm me because I'm big and strong. I'm entertained. End of quote. This is the current state of the manosphere in late capitalism. Running webcam girls is a model for both commerce and success. Yet because of his lack of skill in online development, quote, I'll hire a student to make my app. End of quote. Therefore, the actual capacity to build online infrastructure is beyond him. His content creation involves the exploitation of others. As he states, quote, even if you have no talent or good ideas, if you can get attention, you can become a millionaire. End of quote. This is the archetype of Andrew Mano's casino capitalism. Credibility, knowledge and expertise are displaced for profile and attention. When discussing his, quote, warrior mindset, end of quote, Tate emphasises, quote, inspiration and determination, end of quote. While focusing on working hard, the work is on the self and the exploitation of others. He states, quote, freedom will only come when you no longer trade your time for money, end of quote. The goal is, quote, a bigger house and nicer car, end of quote. Hyper-capitalism, selling anything for personal gain, is confirmed by the mantra, quote, money will fix all your problems, end of quote. The manfluencer is damaging education and educators. A recent study of 30 women teachers revealed the consequences of Andrew Tate's masculine ideologies on students. Many teachers had left the classroom. This manfluencer is lying to boys and young men and truncating the teaching careers of women. This is masculinity that exists to demean, marginalise and harass. The study by Westcott et al. Specifically focused on educated women whose profession is to teach others. The researchers log the abuse they are receiving. Andrew Tate was named as the font and caused the name-calling and disruption in the classroom. Andrew Tate is teaching men how to treat women. Conceptualizations of consent, ethics, work and professional relationships are displaced. Obviously, this language and behaviour existed far beyond the profiling of the Incels or the recent rise of Tate. As Matthew Hall and Jeff Hearn have researched, revenge pornography has a long history of using sexually triggered revenge as entertainment. Communication technologies are the carriers of sex and sexuality. Digitisation enables the consumption and production of explicit materials in the home. The sexualisation of women and the loss of their autonomy when a photograph is taken by another person creates a culture where descriptors such as whore proliferates. Women exist for the use and entertainment of men. However, alternatives exist and are offering powerful critiques. Men's studies, a different way. Men's studies and masculinity studies maintain an outstanding history and trajectory. Michael Kimmel has committed much of his career to deep thinking about men, both inside and outside feminism. He realised that the global financial crisis was an example of, quote, what can go wrong with uncontrolled corporate masculinity, end of quote. Yet post the global financial crisis, zombie neoliberalism continues, a failed ideology that continues to shape the post-pandemic present. What Kimmel's work confirms is that heterosexuality has a history and it changes. Feminism ensured that women had choices, could be educated, maintain reproductive rights, and earn a living wage. But as Kimmel has argued, quote, just when women had found a voice through which they could finally speak about their experiences, men declared themselves tired of listening and then trooped off to the woods to be by themselves, end of quote. After Donald Trump's election, Kimmel explored the angry white man and found two causes, quote, entitlement and a sense of victimisation. End of quote. Kimmel combined these causes into an important concept that is productive in its resonance. Quote, aggrieved entitlement. End of quote. The anger is real. The consequences of this aggrieved entitlement is a blame culture activated on women who do not service men. Meritocracy, the American dream, and patriarchy have all failed these men. This is also tracked by Case and Deaton's deaths of despair. Angry men gather to increase their anger, and their behaviour becomes more extreme. In the manosphere, life is a game of chess. If one group loses, another must gain. Women gain life choices through educational opportunities. When women are educated, their employment opportunities increase and their salaries rise, as does their capacity to remain independent outside of a breadwinner's household economy. This is an historic shift. Universities were places for men. As Kimmel has confirmed, quote, academia has long been a bastion of untrammelled, if genteel, masculinity. So manly, in fact, was the college classroom, the chemistry lab, the frat house, the locker room, that women were excluded from its hallowed halls for centuries, end of quote. Men taught men about men. The exclusion of women from universities required a series of illogical and unfounded arguments. The Bible or biology was used to block access. Then, women's inability to complete scholarship at an academic standard became the excuse. The challenge for ideologues of procreative heteronormative masculinity is that the higher the level of a woman's education, the fewer children she births. Women's higher education is directly connected to the procreative potential of men. The 4B movement, with its origins in South Korea, is one version of women's empowerment. Women can remain alone while building friendships and financial security. They have choices about intimacy and partnerships. Importantly, and deploying many tropes from men's studies, men are turning on their mobile phones and answering back to Andrew Tate and the manosphere. Will Hutchins produces expansive content that summons humorous and accurate archetypes of the whiteboard guy and a man with a microphone. Specifically, he attacks the notion that women's value is determined by physicality. He also repetitively critiques men who assemble cultures of fear around women and critiques bro science. The handle I'm 6'7" validates a diversity of women in terms of race, size and shape. He responds to men abusing women's bodies with the phrase, quote, "You all don't like women," end of quote. The behaviour of incels, their language and ideological parameters are also the font of comedy. The premises are so ludicrous, so ridiculous, that releasing the humour reveals the inversions and irrationality. When men laugh at other men, the power and the potency is diffused. Josh Johnson logs the consistency of the incels. He argued that in fact they were right. No one does want to sleep with them. These disintermediated and deterritorialised voices offer a drumbeat of critique. Men are answering back to men, these men that restrict, reify and limit the capacity of women to be fully human. This is men's studies in action, confirming the plurality and diversity of men beyond the alpha. Significantly, the Me Too movement and the Everyday Sexism initiative have enmeshed with other movements like Not All Men and Not Every Man interventions. While there is a confusion between men, masculinity, patriarchy and misogyny, most men are not predators. Most men are not abusers, perpetrators of domestic violence or oppression. But every man gains from misogyny. Every man gains from the patriarchy. The asymmetrical power relationships reinforce the power of the few. From this misogynistic abyss of digitised popular culture, some men are activating a very important service. This masculine channel for change is built through humour, inversion and the potent stitching of clips from Andrew Tate and the manosphere to answer back in situ. By way of conclusion, patriarchy renders women small, frightened and exposed to attack. Bell Hooks stated that, quote, male fantasy is seen as something that can create reality, whereas female fantasy is seen as something used for escape, end of quote. Misogyny enables the dreams, hopes and visions of men. It provides men with a microphone, a whiteboard and a camera to share these imaginings of men and women far beyond the pub or the sports bar, or indeed the university. This is a serious moment for women academics. This is a serious moment for educated women. After watching thousands of hours of courses and short reels on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter X and Facebook, I am permanently changed. The hatred of women is clear. The imperative to dominate, to hurt, to wound is profound. Laughter, lightness and irony have gone. Women cannot manage the scale of this onslaught. In response to this relentless semiotic and performed violence, women in online spaces are claiming the right to be alone. They also recognise the horrific truth of daily life for women living in and working in and around and through the manosphere. Quote, they fucking hate us, end of quote, is the brutalising and stunning response from Ashba Bank. It is a tough time to be a woman circulating in the world. It is a tough time to be a woman circulating in the contemporary workforce. It is a tough time to be a woman working in our universities. Intellectual paper cuts fester. They become infected. They are wounds that do not heal but are layered over other injuries. The imperative is to place women in a box of marginalisation, minimisation and decay. We are less, small, confused, torn, damaged. This article probed a very simple question. Why are particular members of the manosphere focused on ridiculing educated women while deploying the vocabulary and language of universities for their courses and degrees? Harrison Butker's speech to the graduating class at Benedictine College, speaking directly to the ladies in the audience, confirmed the vocation of being a wife and mother. Students who have just graduated with a degree had to listen to a footballer telling them to prioritise the care of a man and children over all other roles. Education provides women with a diversity of choices beyond the advice of men. Yet these men with microphones pretend that the world has not changed. I argued in one of my earlier books, Ladies Who Lunge, that disempowered groups use disempowered sites to renegotiate their social position. If women are to summon opposition to the War Room, Hustler University or Pimp and Hose degrees, then that renegotiation and critique will be initiated on the most banal of popular cultural platforms. For example, the April 2024 social media debates involve women making a decision about an inflated and imagined scenario. Women were walking on their own in the woods. What would women prefer came into their path? A man or a bear? Women's overwhelming response of bear created an inflammation of wounded masculinities. The reasoning and justifications expressed by women tapped into the fear of attack and rape and the argument that they would not be believed if a man abused them. These popular cultural interventions are shocking in their relentlessness. Women are frightened of men. Not all men, but men crossing their paths cannot be trusted. Confronting a bear is preferable to meeting an unknown man. I commenced this article with comments from a troll who was very focused on ensuring that an educated woman did not speak and was reminded of her status as a whore. While writing this article, on March 17, 2024, a new troll appeared offering a comment to my video titled "How to Make the Corrections Examiners Ask of You and Your Thesis." This vlog was not the most provocative and poignant of topics for the manosphere to critique. Feminism, femininity and women were not mentioned. However, at Adam Mad offered in response, quote, "POV, La Lorena is disappointed with your scholarship but sincerely wants to help," end of quote. La Lorena is a story with its folkloric origins in Mexico. It is the story of a woman who drowned her children after discovering her unfaithful husband. As the tale progresses, anyone who hears her cries either dies or suffers failure through their lives. This is a Medusa with a microphone. Perusing his channel, viewers see a fixation on Zizek, which includes reading his chapters to the camera, often with expletives attached. Intriguingly, comments are not permitted for his videos. But once more, I was attacked, like so many educated women, not for my ideas or interpretation, but for the flaws in my femininity. My pathway through femininity has been different and defiant. Unlike La Lorena, I have birthed no children. This was a correct and intentional decision for me. I respect the reproductive choices of all citizens. I've also been fortunate to be married to two remarkable husbands, both inspirational scholars. Neither man was or is unfaithful. One died of pancreatic cancer. I was his sole carer and was with him at the moment of his death. The other is a remarkable physicist who builds pathways for women in STEM and the careers of Indigenous scholars in the experimental sciences. I am but one woman, but the lives of women, real women, are built from hope and despair and aspirations and efforts that transcend the Propian patriarchal folktales that bind us to narratives not of our choosing. The question returns: what is to be done with the well-qualified academic woman? Historic and sexualised tropes may be summoned, but emotions are not facts. Past injustices are not our future. Committing to higher education and enabling the future learning of generations of women will continue to change the world by enabling choices and alternatives. We speak of diversity, connection, community. We are more than the products of our orifices. We are more than the labels placed on us. The doctorate matters. It stands for the long-fought achievements of women in our diversity. We occupy this space. We listen. We speak. We summon a different future.